Hi everyone, in this video I'll be showing you how to configure a static IP address on an Ubuntu server 18. Now there are a couple of reasons why you need to configure static IP address on your server. The first one and the most obvious one is management. So you don't want a situation whereby you'll be always guessing the IP address of your server, rather you want to keep track of the IP address of the server. Whenever you configure a static IP address, you know for sure that your server is having this particular IP address rather than the IP address given to it by a DHCP server. Now, not just the IP address, there are other configurations like the DNS server and all that your server needs to be requesting always when it's boot up, which is not ideal for a server. So you don't want that kind of situation. What you want is that your server, whenever it is booting up, your server already has all those network configuration set up. Now, the configuration of the IP address and other configurations statically enables the administrator to be able to manage this particular server remotely because he or she know specifically that this server is having this particular IP address. So there is this file that you need to edit in order to change the IP address and other configuration on the server. Alright, right now I am on my Ubuntu 18 prompt now. So what I will do first is to check the IP address setting on this device. So I'll use the command ifconfig. Now, alright, this is the IP address of my server. So if you check the interface emp0s3, which is the the interface that I'll be using. So right now, this IP address is 10.255.1.168. So this is the IP address that my server got from the DHCP. Now, what I want to do is to change this IP address settings to what I want. So I will give it another IP address other than this. Now, before actually changing this particular IP address, the process is kind of simple, but there is this file that I want, but there is this file that you need to change or you need to edit before applying this change. So first, the file is located in the LC netplan directory. So first, I'll change to the directory. You can also just use Nano or any text editor from wherever you are to access this file. But I'll use the cd command to enter that particular directory, which is cd /netplan. So if I list this particular directory, what I will see is I will be having now you are seeing two files. So this 50 dash cloud. So they are actually the same file, but the other one is having .save. Now you are most probably going to see only one file because you are doing this for the first time. The file that I would like to edit is the first one, which is the 50 cloud, the one without the .save. So I can even use cat to see the content of this file. So I'll use cat followed by the name of the file that I want to see the content of. So right now, this is the content of this particular file. You can see that the line that contains the DHCP4 colon is true. So what I would like to do is to change it from true to no, because we don't want this particular server to be requesting the IP address from DHCP. We want to configure the IP address statically. So the next thing I will do is to use the Nano text editor. You can choose any text editor of your choice, but I will use Nano to edit this particular file. But mind you, you have to use the sudo command. You have to use sudo in order to get the privileges when saving this file. So I use sudo nano followed by the name of the file. Sometimes you need to provide a password and you continue. Alright, here now this is the content of the file. So I'll go ahead and make these changes quickly. So the first thing that I'll do is to come over to the DHCP section and change it from true to no, and then I'll start right at the top of the DHCP, right at the top of the D. Now something to note which is very important when configuring or when editing this particular file is the indentation. So you have to pay attention to on how you indent the whatever you are trying to add, like the addresses, the name servers and all that. So any mistake from indenting the particular text will mess things up. So here I'll come to directly above the D here and enter addresses colon followed by the IP address that I want to enter and slash the subnet mask, which is 22. So after hitting enter, look at my cursor is far behind, but you might be tempted to use the tab key. But I will advise you not to use tab key, but use the space bar from your keyboard instead of the tab key. So this will not mess things up, but whenever you use or if you try to use a tab key, the the file will be messed up. So I'll use space bar, take my cursor back to where these texts begin. Right under the A of the address is there, I'll enter the gateway 4 colon followed by the IP address of gateway. So which is 10.255.0.1. So the next thing is to hit enter from here. Still, don't use tab key but use the space bar in order to reach the beginning of the text. So here I'll enter the DNS server configuration. So I'll enter the name servers column, then I'll hit enter from my keyboard. Again, use space bar to begin here. I'll enter the addresses. Now, something to pay attention is the way I arrange these addresses. So I would advise you to do the same. Just enter addresses, then colon, followed by the, I'll use the Google DNS here. So you can use multiple DNS server IP address there, so you can use whatever you feel like using, but I'll use Google DNS for this particular example. So now, those are all the information that I would like to add at this particular moment. So I will continue. Now to exit or to save this file, I'll enter the Control X. This will ask me if I want to save it, and I'll enter Y for yes, and then save it with that particular name. So the next thing that I would like to do is to use this command sudo netplan apply. So this will apply the settings of that particular file to the system. So now the IP address settings must have changed. So to even check or to confirm this, I'll use the if config. So if you remember the IP address that I used when configuring or when editing that particular file, the IP address is .20, which is the IP address that we are seeing now. And the netmask is what we configured there. So I have successfully configured the IP address of this server statically, instead of allowing this server to be always asking DHCP server for the IP address and other configurations. So that is basically how to change the IP address of an Ubuntu server. Now to check things up, I'll even use the ping. I'll use ping 10.255.0.1, which is the IP address of my gateway. So now the ping is successful and it is replying. So that is basically how to manually configure a static IP address on an Ubuntu server 18. I hope you learned something from this video, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.